Dr. Chen's fingers trembled as she swiped through the satellite imagery. The objects had changed position again, defying orbital mechanics in ways that violated everything humanity understood about physics. Artificial, she murmured, ignoring the bickering diplomats behind her. The Russian delegate was shouting something about American weapon tests, while the Chinese representative demanded access to restricted aerospace data. Chen zoomed in on one of the objects, a structure that resembled nothing so much as an enormous insectoid carapace, complete with what appeared to be segmented limbs folded against its hull. The thermal imaging showed heat signatures unlike any human vessel, with concentrated points of energy that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. "They're alive," she whispered, just as her phone buzzed with a text from her brother in Shanghai. Something in the sky. Green lights. Military everywhere. The chamber's main screen flashed red as emergency protocols activated. The Secretary General's face appeared, ashen. "We've lost contact with Shanghai. All communications down. Satellite imagery shows." He paused, visibly struggling to maintain composure. Multiple impact sites, unknown craft descending. Aboard the Fang of Destiny, Vornak performed the ritual blessing of the hunt, dragging his serrated forearm across his chest plate, leaving iridescent ichor in perfectly spaced lines. The youngest warriors watched with reverent attention, their mantis-like appendages tucked in formal position. "The eternal hunt continues," he intoned, his secondary voice chamber producing the deep harmonic resonance of religious significance. "Today, your claws will taste new blood, your sensory organs will catalog new fear scents, and your memory glands will absorb the dying memories of worthy prey." Tactical Officer Krulvak approached with appropriate submissive posturing, though Vornak detected subtle resistance in her pheromone signature. The younger generation always tested boundaries. "Hunt Commander, preliminary reports indicate unexpected resistance from native military forces," she reported. "They possess rudimentary ballistic weapons and primitive aircraft." Vornak dismissed her concerns with a slashing gesture. "All new prey fight initially. It is the way of things. Their neurotransmitter response will shift from aggression to terror within 12 units as always." Krulvak hesitated. "There is something else. Their communication networks. They are adapting to our jamming frequencies with unexpected speed." "Automated systems," Vornak replied, though something in his tertiary stomach clenched uncomfortably. "Deploy the second wave. I want trophy specimens from their command centers." On the outskirts of Shanghai, 10-year-old Min Zhang huddled in the basement of his family's apartment complex, clutching his astronomy notebook. Through a narrow window, he watched the impossible happen. Creatures from his nightmares moving through smoke-filled streets, their articulated limbs carrying them in bounding leaps over abandoned vehicles. His father, Colonel Zhang, had left hours ago after kissing Min's forehead and promising to return. Now, the building shook as something massive moved nearby. Min's phone, somehow still working when all other electronics had failed, lit up with his father's protocol. The emergency family code. Coordinates, followed by a single instruction. "Observe. Remember everything. This knowledge will save humanity." The boy wiped tears from his eyes and began taking notes as precisely as his father had taught him, documenting every detail of the invaders' movements, their apparent reactions to environmental stimuli, their coordination patterns. He didn't understand why his observations mattered, but Colonel Zhang had trained his son well. Knowledge was survival, and humanity would need every advantage to survive what was coming. Colonel Zhang hunkered behind the burning wreckage of an APC, his uniform singed and bloodied at the shoulder. 3 of his remaining soldiers crouched nearby, eyes wide with shock at what they'd just witnessed. 4 Khazari war forms tearing through a platoon of China's finest mechanized infantry like tissue paper. "Sir, they're circling back," whispered Lieutenant Cho, her thermal scanner picking up the aliens' distinctive heat signatures. "Standard pincer movement, just like the last 3 attacks." Zhang nodded, his mind racing through the chess strategies he'd spent decades perfecting. The aliens fought like predators, efficient, brutal, but ultimately predictable. They relied on overwhelming strength and speed, rather than tactical flexibility. Irregular scatter formation, he ordered. Break their expected engagement pattern. Force them to adjust. As his troops deployed, Zhang uploaded his observations to the makeshift military network cobbled together after conventional communications fell. Across the burning city, other commanders were doing the same, creating an evolving database of Khazari tactics. In New York, Darius Wilson, a former exterminator turned National Guard sergeant, discovered the invaders' sensitivity to common pesticides by accident. When a canister of industrial insecticide burst during a firefight in the subway tunnels, the nearest alien collapsed in convulsions, its respiratory spiracles contracting violently. "It's the neurotoxins," he shouted to his squad, grabbing more canisters from an abandoned maintenance closet. "Hit them where the exoskeleton segments meet." Within hours, improvised chemical weapons were being deployed across the city's defense points, giving human forces precious advantages in close-quarter combat. The resistance was sharing information faster than the Khazari could adapt to counter it. Inside the Khazari command vessel, junior hunt leader Sakir faced Vornak's displeasure, his posture low and submissive. "These primitives," Vornak hissed, "have inflicted 28% casualties on your hunting pack. Explain this failure." Sakir's mandibles clicked nervously. "They do not respond according to prey pattern, Supreme Hunter. When we employ standard herding tactics, they scatter in non-instinctual configurations. When we adjust, they adjust faster." "Impossible," Vornak growled, though doubt had begun to gnaw at his innermost thoughts. "They lack the neural architecture for such rapid tactical evolution." Krulvak, monitoring the exchange from her station, quietly compiled data that contradicted established Khazari doctrine. The humans weren't merely fighting back. They were learning, communicating, and adapting with alarming efficiency. Most concerning was their unpredictability. Where other conquered species followed biological imperatives even in crisis, humans seemed capable of overriding instinctual responses. In Lagos, 17-year-old Adebayo Okafor, National Science Fair champion, converted his school's chemistry lab into a makeshift research station. Using his smartphone's camera with a microscope attachment, he captured footage of a Khazari tissue sample retrieved from a battlefield. "Look at the cellular structure," he told the gathered soldiers. "These sensory filaments, they're overexpressed. That's why they react so strongly to light patterns and certain sounds." Across 3 continents, a pattern emerged as desperate innovation gave way to deliberate experimentation. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were conducting the most accelerated research program in history, turning each battlefield into a laboratory. In his command chamber, Vornak reviewed casualty reports with growing unease. For the first time in his centuries-long career of conquest, he ordered contingency plans prepared. Not because he believed they would be necessary, but because something about these humans triggered an ancestral warning sense he hadn't experienced before. They fought like prey, but thought like predators. The contradiction disturbed him more than he cared to admit. Dr. Chen adjusted her makeshift laboratory's ventilation system as she examined the Khazari neural tissue. The underground facility, a repurposed missile silo in Colorado, hummed with activity as scientists from dozens of disciplines worked around the clock. "Look at these dendrite formations," she told General Williams, pointing to the holographic projection. "They're artificial, too symmetrical, too efficient. Someone designed these neural pathways for maximum aggression response and pack coordination." Williams, still wearing the mud of yesterday's field operation on his boots, leaned closer. "Engineered predators. Meaning what exactly?" "Meaning they have standardized neurological architecture," Chen explained, pulling up comparison scans. "Natural evolution creates variation, redundancies, workarounds. These brains are too perfect, and that gives us an opening." She switched displays to a simulation of neural response patterns. Their sensory processing is optimized for hunting, movement detection, infrared vision, chimorception. But the trade-off is cognitive flexibility. They literally can't think outside their evolutionary parameters. In another section of the facility, Polish mathematician Dr. Kowalski mapped Khazari attack patterns into predictive algorithms. 3 weeks of battlefield data revealed underlying mathematical constants in their behavior. The aliens operated on precise geometric formations hardwired into their tactical thinking. "It's beautiful in a terrible way," he told the assembled military strategists. Their attack patterns follow fractal progressions that would be optimal against prey that reacts instinctively, but against opponents who recognize the pattern. He displayed a chess-like simulation where human forces, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, consistently disrupted superior Khazari forces by exploiting their predictable behaviors. Meanwhile, in orbit, Vornak faced the unprecedented challenge of explaining failure to the hierarchs. A holographic projection of First Hierarch, Kthos, loomed in his command chamber, mandibles clicking in disapproval. 3 supply vessels destroyed. 2 forward bases overrun. Unacceptable losses against a pre-spaceflight species. Kthos's harmonics resonated with dangerous undertones. "Perhaps your hunt scent is fading with age, Supreme Commander." Vornak suppressed his instinctive aggression response. "The humans employ unconventional strategies, Great Hierarch. They sacrifice tactical advantage for strategic positioning. They ignore territorial imperatives. They shame our war forms." Kthos interrupted. "The eternal hunt tolerates no excuses. I am dispatching the hunter-cater." After the transmission ended, Kralvor approached his commander. "The hunter-cater has never been deployed against a single planet before." "The hierarchs fear what I have begun to suspect," Vornak replied quietly. "These humans are not merely prey who fight back. They are something different." On the ground, humanity's resistance crystallized around unexpected innovations. In Bangalore, engineers repurposed commercial drones with sonic emitters that broadcast frequencies specifically calibrated to disrupt Khazari neural patterns. In Detroit, automotive factories retooled to produce modular armor designed to counter alien biological weapons. Most surprisingly, civilian infrastructure proved more resilient than anyone anticipated. When the aliens destroyed conventional internet backbones, thousands of independent mesh networks sprang up. When power grids failed, neighborhood-level microgrids activated. The distributed nature of human civilization, once considered inefficient compared to the Khazari's centralized command structure, became its greatest strength. At a forward command post near the ruins of Beijing, Colonel Zhang, now promoted to general, studied the latest intelligence from around the world. His son Min's detailed observations had been combined with thousands of others into the first comprehensive xenobiological profile of their enemy. "They expected us to act like prey," Zhang told his assembled officers. "But humans have always been predators who learn to cooperate, and that makes all the difference." Captain Maya Rodriguez stood in the Antarctic Research Station's medical bay, her body still adjusting to the neural interfaces of the prototype armor. Designed using reverse-engineered Khazari biotechnology, the suit extended from her spine in chitinous plates that mimicked the alien's natural armor while enhancing her own strength and speed. "How does it feel?" asked Dr. Abbasi, monitoring her vitals. "Like wearing someone else's skin," Rodriguez answered, flexing an arm that could now punch through concrete. "But I'm learning its rhythms." The 14 other members of her strike team underwent similar procedures. Olympic athletes, special forces operators, and combat veterans chosen for their neurological compatibility with the hybrid technology. Each suit was uniquely calibrated to its wearer's nervous system, creating a seamless interface between human cognition and alien biology. "Remember," Abbasi cautioned, "the suits enhance your physical capabilities, but the real advantage is here." He tapped his temple. "The Khazari fight on instinct and training. You fight with creativity and adaptation." As Rodriguez's team prepared for deployment, the strategic situation shifted dramatically in Brazil. The retrofitted crop dusters dispersed the synthesized pheromone disruptors over the Khazari forward base near Sao Paulo, creating immediate chaos among the alien forces. Deprived of their chemical communication network, individual warriors reverted to primitive behavioral patterns, attacking each other in confusion or freezing in decision paralysis. From orbit, Vornak watched the disaster unfold through tactical feeds. The sacred hunting formations dissolved into disorder as his warriors lost cohesion. Worse, human forces exploited the confusion with precision attacks targeting command nodes. Centuries of military doctrine proved useless against an enemy who refused to behave according to any recognizable pattern. "The base is compromised," reported Tikaz, his second-in-command. "Humans will capture intact specimens and technology." Vornak made his decision in seconds. Orbital strike. Purge the site. "Our warriors," Tikaz began, "are already lost," Vornak finished. "The knowledge in their neural clusters cannot fall into human hands." The ensuing bombardment obliterated the base and 3 surrounding kilometers, but the tactical victory masked a strategic failure. The humans had proven they could neutralize Khazari forces without direct confrontation, exploiting biological vulnerabilities in ways no previous species had even attempted. In the aftermath, Tikaz secreted subtle pheromone signatures that other young officers detected, signals of discontent that bypassed traditional command channels. The Khazari hierarchy had evolved for conquest of instinct-driven prey, not for warfare against adaptive, intelligent opponents. Perhaps new leadership approaches were needed. Half a world away, Rodriguez's team deployed via high-altitude drop into the heart of the Khazari Australian Command Center. The mission was simple in concept but nearly impossible in execution. Infiltrate, gather intelligence, eliminate key leadership, and extract if possible. As Rodriguez fell through the night sky, her enhanced senses detected the bioelectric signatures of Khazari sentries. The hybrid armor interfaced directly with her nervous system, translating alien sensory data into information her human brain could process. She could now see as they saw, sense as they sensed, yet think in ways they could not predict. The first Khazari warrior died before it registered the human presence. Rodriguez moving with borrowed speed, striking with borrowed strength, but attacking with human precision at vulnerabilities the aliens didn't know they possessed. The second and third fell similarly, their instinctual responses useless against tactics no prey had ever employed. Deep within the command center, Sub-Commander Rivka sensed something amiss in the perimeter guard's pheromone signatures. The humans had adapted again, but how? As warning klaxons began to sound, Rivka realized too late that the hunters had, impossibly, become the hunted. Dr. Sanjay Patil adjusted the neural interface translator as Krelvac shifted uncomfortably in her restraints. The captured warrior's mantis-like limbs had been secured with carbon fiber bonds, but her compound eyes tracked every movement in the laboratory with predatory focus. "I'm going to ask you about your species' history," Patil said slowly, watching the translation algorithms process his speech into the clicking, multi-tonal language of the Khazari. Krelvac's response came through the speakers as synthesized English. "History is the record of successful hunts. What else matters?" "Who made you?" Patil asked, showing her genetic sequence analyses on a nearby screen. "These portions of your DNA. They're too precise, too engineered." The alien's reaction registered on the emotional response monitors, something between shock and religious offense. "We emerged from the crucible of evolution as apex predators. The strong survive. The weak perish. No natural evolution creates such perfect symmetry," Patil countered, highlighting specific gene sequences. "Someone designed your species for warfare. The question is who and why." As their conversation deepened, halfway across the world, General Williams orchestrated the most audacious psychological operation of the war. Broadcast globally on all frequencies the Khazari monitored, human children solved complex spatial reasoning puzzles and adaptive challenge scenarios that captured Khazari warriors had consistently failed. Their brains are optimized for hunting, not problem-solving. Williams explained to world leaders in a secure video conference. They're faster and stronger, but their neural architecture lacks our cognitive flexibility. The imagery of 8-year-old Min Zhong, Colonel Zhong's son, solving in minutes what adult Khazari struggled with for hours struck at the core of the aliens' biological superiority complex. Within Khazari ships, younger warriors began questioning the fundamental doctrine that had driven their civilization for millennia. In orbit, the first human counteroffensive began as supposedly non-military satellites revealed their true purpose. Decades of paranoid Cold War engineering had left Earth with numerous weather and communications platforms that could be repurposed into kinetic weapons. When activated simultaneously, they damaged 3 Khazari support vessels before the aliens could respond. Vornak, watching the unexpected attack from his command chamber, felt something ancestral stir in his genetic memory, a warning sense no Khazari had experienced since the species' distant past. These humans fought in ways that seemed chaotic, but achieved strategic coherence without centralized command. They attacked not merely with weapons but with knowledge, turning the Khazari's own biology against them. They are not prey, he finally admitted to his inner council. They are something else entirely. Within the secure laboratory, Krulvak's worldview continued to fracture as Patel shared more evidence of the Khazari's engineered origins. Her people's religious texts described their emergence as natural apex predators, but the genetic evidence suggested a different story, one of artificial selection and guided evolution. Why would prey species study predators so extensively? She asked, genuine confusion evident in her posture. When we hunt, the prey runs. They do not analyze our hunting patterns or exploit our biochemistry. Because humans were predators too, Patel explained, showing her archaeological evidence of early human hunting techniques. We evolved as persistence hunters before we developed technology. We understand predatory thinking because it's part of our heritage. The revelation seemed to unlock something in Krulvak's understanding. Then we are not so different, she clicked softly, a concept heretical in Khazari doctrine. As their conversation continued, the first prototype interstellar defense platform, secretly constructed in lunar orbit before the invasion, powered up its engines, preparing to carry humanity's counteroffensive beyond Earth for the first time. The hunters would soon discover that humans didn't merely defend territory, they expanded into it. The ancient arena aboard the Khazari command vessel gleamed with bioluminescent markers, its circular combat floor designed to prevent prey from finding corners to hide in. Vornak stood on the ceremonial platform, his battle-scarred exoskeleton adorned with the tokens of 100 successful hunts. The challenge of dominance will proceed according to sacred tradition, he announced to the assembled Khazari warriors and the human delegation. Your champions will face our hunt masters in sequential combat until one side yields or falls. The victor dictates terms to the vanquished. Dr. Chen watched from the human observation area, analyzing the arena's biochemical composition through specialized lenses. The floor secretes compounds that enhance their sensory reception. She whispered to General Williams, it's designed to maximize their natural advantages. Williams nodded slightly, exactly as we expected. Their team had been chosen precisely because they understood how to neutralize those advantages. The first human to step forward was Dr. Mirai Tanaka, theoretical physicist and former Olympic fencer. She carried no weapons, wearing only a simple black uniform with subtle sensor arrays woven into the fabric. Her opponent, a massive Khazari warrior named Traktor, clicked his battle mandibles in anticipation of an easy kill. Begin, called Vornak, and Traktor lunged with blinding speed. But Tanaka wasn't there. Using data from her sensors that mapped the subtle electromagnetic fields produced by Khazari muscular contractions, she had moved a millisecond before the alien began its attack, positioning herself where its compound eyes had a natural blind spot. Their neural architecture creates predictable attack patterns, she had explained during preparation. Action potentials fire in their motor neurons approximately 30 milliseconds before physical movement begins. For 3 minutes, the Khazari warrior attacked with increasing frustration, while Tanaka evaded with mathematical precision, never striking back, simply demonstrating the fundamental flaw in the Khazari combat approach. It assumed the prey would eventually make a mistake. When Raktor finally collapsed from metabolic exhaustion, his biology optimized for explosive speed rather than sustained activity, the assembled Khazari fell silent in shocked disbelief. The second contest pitted chess grandmaster Mikhail Volkov against the Khazari tactical master Zivek. Instead of physical combat, they faced off in a strategic simulation using holographic terrain and combat units. The Khazari expected quick victory. Their species possessed eidetic memory and could calculate battle outcomes dozens of moves ahead. What they didn't anticipate was Volkov's completely non-optimal opening gambit, sacrificing valuable units for no apparent tactical advantage. The human played not to win by conventional metrics, but to create chaotic board states that defied computational prediction. He's intentionally introducing entropy into the system, Chen observed. Khazari tactical thinking can't process genuine randomness. By the 20th move, Zivak's predictive capabilities had been neutralized by the cascading uncertainty Volkov had created. 10 moves later, the Khazari tactician found himself in a lost position he hadn't seen coming. Trapped not by superior calculation, but by an approach to warfare his species had never encountered. The third contest revealed the human's true strategy. Wildlife behaviorist Dr. Amara Okonkwo faced the Khazari hunt champion Vrexnak in direct combat. Instead of evading, she deliberately triggered the alien's instinctual hunting patterns, while the previous human competitors observed from the sidelines. After 5 minutes, she nodded to her teammates, who joined her in the arena, not to fight individually, but as a coordinated unit that anticipated and countered every Khazari movement before it happened. In the observation chamber, Tikaz leaned toward Vornak. "They studied us," he said quietly. The first 2 contests weren't attempts to win. They were gathering behavioral data. Vornak watched as his greatest champion faltered against the human team's perfect coordination. "No prey has ever turned the hunt against the hunter," he replied, mandibles clicking in what might have been admiration or fear. The captured Khazari mothership Eternal Fang hung in Earth orbit, now a joint research station where human scientists worked alongside a growing faction of Khazari who had broken from traditional hierarchy. Within its cavernous historical archives, Dr. Chen and Krelvac examined holographic data centuries old. "These are earliest records of our species," Krelvac explained, her modified vocal structures now capable of approximating human speech patterns. "The emergence era, when we first developed civilization." The hologram showed primitive Khazari settlements with structures that seemed oddly mismatched to their physiology. Doorways too perfectly sized, agricultural systems too efficiently designed for a species just discovering metallurgy. "Compare these gene sequences," Chen said, displaying ancient Khazari DNA alongside modern samples. "The rate of mutation and selective pressure is mathematically impossible within your species' reproductive timeframe." Krolvac's compound eyes shifted in the Khazari expression of revelation. The architect myths. They weren't myths. The archives revealed fragments of an older civilization, a species called the Nexeri who had faced extinction from a rival empire. In their desperation, they had engineered the Khazari as biological weapons, selecting for aggression, pack coordination, and predatory efficiency, while deliberately limiting problem-solving capabilities that might lead to questioning orders. "They created us to hunt their enemies," Krelvac said softly. "Then they vanished, leaving only fragments of their technology. And us." Chen nodded. "Your religious texts about predatory supremacy, their behavioral conditioning programs, designed to maintain your species' focus on conquest without questioning your origins." Meanwhile, aboard Vornak's command vessel, civil war erupted as Tikaz led young warriors in open rebellion against the Hunt hierarchs. The traditional leadership had ordered an escalation, viral weapons that would sterilize Earth's biosphere, a violation of the sacred hunt code that demanded prey be conquered through direct combat. The hierarchs fear what the humans represent. Tikaz told his followers as they secured the ship's weapon systems. A species that thinks like predators but cooperates like prey disrupts everything we believe about the natural order. Vornak, watching the rebellion spread through his fleet, made the most difficult decision of his life. Instead of crushing the dissidents as tradition demanded, he ordered his personal guard to stand down. "The humans have proven something I suspected since the first engagements," he told his stunned officers. "The hunt code is flawed. It assumes a universe divided simply between predator and prey. These humans, they are neither, or perhaps both." Back on Earth, Dr. Chen's team developed the most controversial technology of the war, a genetic therapy that could modify the Khazari brain structure, dampening the engineered aggression while preserving their identity and intelligence. The ethical debate rocked human leadership. "We're talking about fundamentally changing another species," argued the UN Secretary General. "Who gives us that right?" General Williams countered. "The architects already changed them. We'd be restoring choice, the choice they never had." As humanity argued, Krelvac shared the revelation of their engineered origins with other captured warriors. The news spread through covert communication channels to Tikas's rebels, triggering a cascade of identity crises throughout Khazari society. In her quarters, Krelvac reviewed human historical archives with growing fascination. "Your species also engineered itself, in a way," she observed to Dr. Patel. "Not genetically, but culturally. You transformed from isolated hunter-gatherers into a planetary civilization through ideas alone." Patel nodded. "Technology, philosophy, art, they're our way of evolving beyond our biology. Perhaps that's what your creators feared most." The first volunteer, Khazari, underwent the genetic therapy the following day. Krelvac herself, making a choice her species had been engineered never to make: to change their own nature through understanding rather than conquest. The treaty chamber aboard the newly christened Understanding gleamed with both human and Khazari design elements, curved architecture that accommodated alien physiology alongside human ergonomics, lighting that served both species' visual ranges. 5 years after first contact, representatives from both civilizations gathered to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. Krelvac, her exoskeleton now bearing the blue-green markings of the reformed Khazari, stood beside General Rodriguez as the final provisions of the accord were sealed. The modified gene therapy had spread through nearly 40% of the Khazari population, creating a new generation that retained their species' strengths while gaining freedom from engineered aggression imperatives. "The architects never imagined this outcome," Krelvac observed, watching Khazari and human engineers making final adjustments to the ship's hybrid systems. "They designed us to conquer, not to choose, and certainly not to cooperate with our intended prey." Rodriguez nodded, her own body now a synthesis of technologies. The neural interfaces originally designed for combat now adapted for ship operations. That was their mistake. They built perfect predators, but forgot that adaptation is the true law of evolution. Vornak, one of the few traditional Khazari leaders to embrace the new reality, addressed the gathered representatives. His once imposing form now seemed weathered, but his voice carried the weight of centuries of experience. "We came as conquerors, following patterns written into our very cells," he began. "We leave as partners, having learned the greatest lesson of the eternal hunt, that true evolutionary success comes not from domination, but from synthesis." The speech was interrupted by a transmission that rippled through the ship's communication arrays. Deep space monitoring stations had detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system, vessels of designs neither human nor Khazari. "The Concordat," whispered Krelvac, recognizing the energy patterns from ancient Khazari records. "The galactic hegemony that predates even our creation." On the observation deck, Dr. Chen studied the incoming data alongside Tikaz, their unlikely partnership having produced the theoretical framework for the ship's revolutionary propulsion system. "They've noticed us," Chen said, reading the transmission patterns. "A predator-prey alliance violates their understanding of natural law." Tikaz clicked his mandibles in what had become his characteristic laugh. Natural law. There's nothing natural about any of this. The Khazari were engineered weapons. Humans engineered their entire environment instead of themselves. We've both transcended our origins. In the command center, Min Zhang, now 19 and one of the most promising xenolinguists of his generation, worked with a team to decode the incoming transmission. His childhood observations of Khazari behavior patterns had evolved into a deeper understanding of non-human communication systems. "They're not threatening us directly," he reported. "They're curious, possibly concerned. Their language structure suggests a hierarchical species that categorizes civilizations into rigid taxonomies." As the understanding prepared for first contact with this new civilization, Rodriguez and Krelvac stood together on the bridge. The human who had once hunted Khazari commanders and the alien who had once seen humans as prey, now co-captains of humanity's first true interstellar vessel. "They'll underestimate us," Krelvac noted, reviewing the Concordat's message. "Their records will show Earth as pre-spaceflight and Khazari as conquest-driven. They won't expect what we've become." Rodriguez smiled, the expression no longer alien to her Khazari counterpart. "Good. Underestimation is the first advantage in any negotiation." She activated the ship's communication array. "Let's introduce ourselves, not as human or Khazari, but as something entirely new." As the understanding moved to intercept the Concordat vessels, its hull gleamed with the symbolic markings of both species merged into a new emblem. Neither predator nor prey, but a synthesis that the galaxy had never witnessed before and would never forget.